When my daughter said through the microphone that I hadn't given a single balloon for her anniversary party, I smiled and left in silence. But the next day, the 3.2 million euros I planned to leave her no longer existed. My name is Manuel Ruiz Moreno. I'm 65 years old, and for decades I built a small empire that I thought I would leave as a legacy to my only daughter. Today, as I write these lines from my new house on the coast of Malaga, I can say with absolute tranquility that it was the best decision I made in my life. But to understand why, I must take you back to that Saturday, September 16th, 2023, the day my world changed forever. Diana's anniversary celebration would be held at the Hotel Villamagna in Madrid. For months I had heard vague comments about the preparations, always in passing, never with details. "Everything's under control, Dad," she would tell me whenever I asked if she needed help. "Joaquin is taking care of everything." Joaquin Vega Castillo, the father of Patricia Minuera, a 58-year-old real estate businessman who had taken the reins of the organization with the naturalness of someone accustomed to solving problems with money. I didn't offer to pay for the anniversary party. It's true, I must admit it. After my divorce from Isabel in 2018, my relationship with Diana had become distant, cold, almost ceremonial. She lived her life as a successful lawyer. I managed my businesses from the shadows, and we saw each other on sporadic occasions where we exchanged courtesies without depth. I thought the anniversary would be an opportunity to get closer, but I also thought my contribution would come later, privately, in the way that really matters with a secure future. You see, during all those months of preparations, I had my own secret plan. In my office on Serrano Street, I kept 2 documents that would change Diana's life forever. The transfer papers for Ruiz Construction SL, the family company I had built over 30 years and which billed 2.8 million euros annually, and the deeds to a 180 square meter apartment in the heart of Salamanca neighborhood, valued at 850,000 euros. My plan was to give her both documents during the honeymoon as an anniversary gift, a surprise that would guarantee her financial stability for life. But there's context I must explain, because nothing that happened afterward makes sense without knowing the years prior to that fateful night. During the last 5 years, especially after the divorce, I had tried to maintain a close relationship with Diana in small but significant ways. When I was diagnosed with hypertension in March 2021, I asked her to accompany me to consultations with the cardiologist. "I'm busy with an important case, Dad. Take a taxi," was her response. When I had pneumonia in December 2022 and spent 4 days admitted to La Paz Hospital, Diana appeared only once for 20 minutes, constantly looking at her phone. The small humiliations accumulated like drops of water that pierce stone when I needed help with online banking, when I didn't understand some phone app, when I simply wanted company for a Sunday meal. There was always an excuse, always something more important. "Dad, you have to adapt to the times," she would tell me, with that condescension that hurts more than a shout. However, when Joaquin Vega needed something, Diana would run. I saw how my daughter went out of her way to please her father-in-law, how she consulted him on professional decisions, how she religiously visited the Vega house on Sundays. It was painful, but I kept quiet, thinking that time and my future generosity would fix things. I arrived alone at the anniversary party that Saturday afternoon. Isabel, my ex-wife, had arrived in her sister's car. The 200 guests filled the elegant halls of the hotel, all impeccably dressed, all oblivious to the internal drama I had been carrying for years. Diana looked radiant in her elegant dress, Patricia beautiful in her outfit that, according to comments I heard, had cost 4,500 euros. During the ceremony, I observed Joaquin in the front row, photogenic and proud, receiving congratulations as if he were the one celebrating. I was in the third row, smiling politely, applauding at appropriate moments, feeling that strange mixture of paternal pride and melancholy that only a divorced parent can understand. The dinner proceeded without incident. I spoke with some distant relatives, exchanged courtesies with Diana's colleagues, praised the food and service, everything normal, everything civilized. In my mind, I went over and over the speech I would give when the time came for toasts. I would talk about how proud I was, about good wishes for the couple, and perhaps subtly mention the surprise that awaited them. But that moment never came for me. When Joaquin took the microphone for the first toast, he spoke for 8 minutes about his new daughter, about the joy of having contributed to making this dream of love come true, about how proud he was to have been able to facilitate this perfect celebration. The applause was long and enthusiastic. Then it was Diana's turn, and that's when my world, built over 65 years of work, sacrifice, and paternal love, collapsed with the force of an earthquake. Diana took the microphone with that confident smile she had inherited from me in the good times. The light from the room illuminated her face while 200 pairs of eyes fixed on her, waiting for her words. Patricia looked at her from the main table with adoration. Joaquin felt proud from his seat, and Isabel smiled with that maternal expression I also knew. I expected to hear my name. I expected that recognition a parent deserves, even if it's just protocol, even if it's basic education. I had raised that woman, I had shaped her, I had paid for her law studies at the Complutense University, I had been present at every graduation, at every important achievement of her life, until the divorce at least. Friends, family, Diana began with a clear and measured voice. Today is the most important day of my life. Patricia and I want to thank all the people who have made this magical celebration possible. Her first words were for Patricia, as was natural. She spoke of their love, of the plans they had together, of the happiness she felt, everything beautiful, everything expected. Then she mentioned Isabel, thanking her for having raised her with so much love and dedication. My ex-wife was visibly moved, discreetly wiping away tears. Up. To that point, everything was normal. I awaited my turn, mentally preparing my expression of humble gratitude for when it was my turn. But then Diana turned toward the table where Joaquin was sitting, and her tone changed completely. It acquired a warmth, a genuine gratitude that froze my blood. I want to make a very special thanks to Joaquin Vega, my father-in-law, she said, raising her glass toward him. A man who from day one received me like a true daughter. Joaquin, without your generosity, without your unconditional support, this celebration wouldn't have been possible. You've paid for every detail of this perfect party, from the balloons to the orchestra, from the banquet to the most exquisite wines. The applause began to sound while my hands grew cold. Where was this speech going? Joaquin has taught me what it means to be a present parent, Diana continued, and each word was like a dagger straight to the heart. Always available, always willing to help, always putting family ahead of everything else. Thank you for showing me that a parent can also be a friend, a counselor, a true support. The entire room was captivated by her words. Joaquin had stood up, clearly moved, receiving ovations as if he had just won a prize. And then came the moment that will haunt me until the day I die. Diana made a dramatic pause. She smiled with that cruel irony that only children can direct at their parents, and dropped the bomb that would destroy our relationship forever. My father-in-law has paid absolutely everything for this perfect anniversary party. My father, well, she laughed slightly, as if she were telling a funny anecdote. My father hasn't given a single balloon. The silence that followed was deafening. 200 people directed their gazes toward me instantly, some with pity, others with surprise, a few with that morbid curiosity that family drama awakens when it becomes public. I felt as if I had received a slap in front of all of Spain. Diana continued talking, but I could no longer hear more. Her words became a distant buzzing while my mind processed what had just happened. It wasn't just the public humiliation, although that hurt deeply. It was the absolute contempt, the total lack of respect toward everything I had been as a parent. Not a single balloon. Did she really think my contribution to her life could be measured by what I had spent on her anniversary party? In those eternal seconds, while I feigned a smile and applauded, mechanically, my memory became an implacable machine that reproduced every slight, every small humiliation I had suffered for years. I remembered that Tuesday in November 2022 when I called her anguished because I couldn't access my online bank account, and the system had blocked me. "Dad, I can't right now. I'm in an important meeting." "Call the bank," she had told me curtly. I spent 3 hours on the phone with operators who transferred me from department to department until finally a young employee had the patience to help me step by step. I remembered when I needed someone to take me for an endoscopy in May 2023. The procedure required sedation and I needed company to return home. "Dad, hire a private taxi. I have to prepare a case for Tuesday," was her response. I ended up asking the favor of Sebastian, my 78-year-old neighbor, who accompanied me without complaint. I remembered the empty Sundays when I invited her to eat, and she always had excuses. "I have to work. Patricia and I have plans. We're going to Joaquin's house." But on Mondays, I saw on Facebook the photos of Diana at the Vegas house, smiling at family lunches where there was time for everything. While Diana continued her speech, thanking all the important people in our lives, I was still not mentioned beyond that dismissive phrase. It was as if I had been reduced to a footnote, a secondary character in the life of the woman I had raised. The irony was brutal. In my office, I had ready the documents that would make her a millionaire overnight. I had planned to give her the keys to a prosperous future, to an economic security that most people can only dream of. And she had just reduced me to not a single balloon. When Diana finally finished her speech, the room erupted in applause. Joaquin approached to hug her, pats on the back, smiles of mutual pride. Patricia kissed her emotionally. Isabel applauded from her table, apparently oblivious to the damage her daughter had just inflicted. I remained seated, maintaining that forced smile that physically hurt me. Some nearby guests looked at me with poorly disguised compassion. I heard murmurs. "How harsh. Poor thing, what a way to humiliate her father." Diana returned to the main table without even looking at me. There was no gesture of recognition. There was no attempt to soften her words. For her, apparently she had said something completely normal and acceptable. It was, at that exact moment, while I watched my daughter toast cheerfully with Joaquin, that I made the most important decision of my life. It wasn't an emotional outburst. It wasn't blind revenge. It was crystal clarity, cold and calculated. If my daughter believed that I hadn't given a single balloon, then she would be right forever. I got up from my seat with a tranquility that surprised even myself. There was no tremor in my hands, no visible rage on my face, only a strange serenity, like the calm they say condemned people feel moments before execution. Perhaps because, in a certain sense, something inside me had died that night. I walked between the tables with measured steps, dodging the guests who had gotten up to dance. The orchestra played a soft version of Sabre a Me, while couples swayed on the dance floor. Everything continued to be perfect, elegant, exactly as Joaquin had planned. The party continued its natural course, oblivious to the personal earthquake that had just shaken my foundations. I reached the main table, where Diana was talking animatedly with Patricia and her university friends. I observed her for a few seconds. My daughter, the woman who had come from my entrails, who had taken her first steps holding my fingers, who had cried in my arms when she broke her arm at 7 years old, that same woman who had just annihilated me publicly without the slightest hint of remorse. "Diana," I said softly, touching her shoulder. She turned toward me with that social smile she reserved for casual acquaintances. "Yes, Dad? Congratulations on the anniversary. Everything has been beautiful." Her eyes showed superficial satisfaction, as if my approval were a minor detail. "You're welcome. Thank you. Joaquin really outdid himself with everything." Even in my congratulations, she needed to mention Joaquin. "Patricia is radiant," I added, looking at my daughter-in-law. She smiled courteously, but I noticed some discomfort in her expression. Perhaps she had perceived the tension I was trying to hide. "Thank you so much." "Manuel," she responded with politeness. At least Patricia maintained forms. I moved a little closer to Diana. The nearby guests continued conversing, but some discreetly paid attention to our interaction. They knew something strange had happened with the speech. "Daughter," I told her in a low voice, placing my hand on her shoulder firmly, "you said something very true tonight. You're right. I haven't given a single balloon for your anniversary." Diana looked at me with some confusion, as if she didn't understand where my comment was going. "Dad, I didn't mean—" No, I interrupted her gently, maintaining that smile that was costing me superhuman effort. "You were absolutely honest. And you know what I like about honesty? That it works in both directions." I gave her a hug, a long, paternal hug, which she returned mechanically. While I hugged her, I whispered in her ear, "Enjoy your perfect night, Diana. It's been exactly what I needed to hear." When I separated, I saw a flash of uneasiness in her eyes. Perhaps she sensed there was something deeper in my words, but she was too immersed in her celebration to process it completely. "Have a wonderful honeymoon," I added, kissing her forehead as I had done thousands of times when she was a child. "I love you, daughter." Without waiting for a response, I turned toward Patricia, gave her a polite kiss on the cheek, and wished her all the happiness in the world. She murmured something about hoping we would see each other soon. Empty words of courtesy that we both knew meant nothing real. Then I headed toward Isabel, who was at her table chatting with her sister Carmen. My ex-wife received me with that polite coldness that characterized our interactions since the divorce. "I'm leaving now, Isabel. The ceremony has been very beautiful." "So early?" "It's still early," she responded with genuine surprise. "I have things to do early tomorrow morning," I lied naturally. "Take care of yourself." I gave her a kiss on the cheek, and also said goodbye to Carmen, who looked at me with some strangeness. She had probably noticed the tension during Diana's speech. I left the room without looking back. At the hotel reception, the concierge asked if I needed him to call a taxi. "Please," I responded. And in less than 5 minutes, I was in the back seat of a black Mercedes, giving the address of my house in the Chambery neighborhood. During the 25-minute journey, Madrid paraded before my eyes like a silent movie. The illuminated streets, people enjoying their Saturday night, the terraces full of life. Everything remained the same as always, but I had changed irrevocably in the last 2 hours. The taxi driver, a man of about 50 years with an Andalusian accent, tried to start a conversation. "Coming from some celebration?" "From an anniversary," I responded laconically. "Ah, how nice, family." "My daughter." "Congratulations, you must be very proud." Proud. What a complex word it had become that night. "Yes," I lied. "Very proud." The rest of the trip passed in silence. I looked out the window, but I didn't really see the streets. My mind had begun to work mechanically, coldly, calculatingly. It was as if I had activated an internal program that had been asleep for years, the business survival instinct that had served me to build my business from scratch. When I arrived home, I paid the taxi driver and slowly climbed to my apartment on the 3rd floor. The night porter greeted me cordially. "How was the anniversary, Don Manuel?" "Perfect," I responded. "Absolutely perfect." Once inside my home, I took off my ceremonial suit with slow and deliberate movements. I hung up the jacket, loosened the tie, put on comfortable clothes, all with that strange calm that had invaded me since the moment of public humiliation. I prepared a whiskey, an 18-year-old Macallan that I kept for special occasions. Ironies of life. That night definitely deserved a special drink, although not for the reasons I had. Imagine that morning. I sat in my favorite leather armchair, the one I had bought when I moved after the divorce, and began to reflect with that brutal lucidity that only comes in the most painful moments of life. Diana was right. I hadn't contributed financially to her anniversary, but not because I was stingy, not because I didn't care, not because I didn't have the means. I hadn't contributed because I had erroneously assumed that my role as a parent went beyond money. I had thought that my presence, my love, my emotional support were worth as much as the euros Joaquin had invested. How naive I had been. In Diana's world, apparently, love was measured in paid bills, in covered expenses, in tangible investments. And under that criterion, Joaquin had won the competition overwhelmingly. Joaquin was the parent Diana wanted, present with the wallet, generous with money, always ready to solve economic problems. I was simply the biological parent, a decorative figure who appeared at family ceremonies to complete social protocol. Very well, if those were the rules of the game, I would accept them completely. I finished my whiskey and went directly to my office. I turned on the desk lamp, opened the safe I had built behind a Zarolla painting, and took out the 2 documents that would change the course of this story. I read them once more, just to make sure I completely understood what I was about to do. In my hands, I had Diana's economic future, 3,200,000 euros in total value. Between company and apartment, it was time to show her that she was right. Her father really didn't give a single balloon. The documents were there, spread out on my mahogany desk, under the yellowish light of the lamp. 2 sheets that represented decades of work, sacrifice, and meticulous planning that Diana had never suspected. I touched them with my fingertips as if they were sacred relics, while my mind began a brutal journey into the past. Ruiz Construction SL had begun in 1987 with a loan of 50,000 pesetas I asked from the bank after selling Isabel's car. Diana was barely 2 years old then. She ran around the house in her short pants while I filled out forms at the kitchen table until late hours. Isabel prepared coffee after coffee for me, trusting blindly in my vision of the future, even though our savings were practically non-existent. The first contracts were small: bathroom renovations, ceiling repairs, minor jobs that I performed myself with tools I bought second-hand. Diana fell asleep, listening to the sound of my calculator while I made budgets, and on weekends she accompanied me to the construction sites, wrapped in her little blue jacket, asking me what each tool was for. "Dad, when will I be old enough to help you?" she would ask me with those curious little eyes while I placed azulejos or sanded walls. "Very soon, champion," I would answer, caressing her hair. "Someday, all this will be yours." How innocent I had been, believing those promises meant something to her. The company grew gradually during the 90s. We got bigger contracts, comprehensive office renovations, construction of attached chalets, rehabilitation of historic buildings. By 2000, we already employed 15 people and billed more than 300,000 euros annually. Diana, then 15 years old, boasted to her high school classmates, "My father has a construction company. He builds important houses." She felt proud of me in that era, or at least pretended to be. The apartment on Velázquez Street I acquired in 2015 during the real estate crisis when prices had fallen dramatically. It cost 480,000 euros then, a risky investment that Isabel criticized harshly. "Are you crazy, Manuel? Why do we want 2 apartments?" she reproached me. But I already had plans. It would be the anniversary gift for Diana when she found the woman of her life. For 8 years I kept that property, religiously paying the community fees, insurance, taxes. Every quarter when the IBI bill arrived, I thought about the happy face Diana would make the day I gave her the keys. "Dad, I can't believe it," I imagined she would tell me. "You're incredible." More pathetic fantasies of a father in love with his daughter. I took the second document, the apartment deeds, 180 square meters, distributed in 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, living room with views of the Retiro, kitchen equipped with latest generation appliances. I had completely renovated it in 2020, investing another 120,000 additional euros. Noble parquet floors, Carrara marble in the bathrooms, ducted air conditioning, integrated home automation, everything designed for a young couple starting their married life. While I reviewed the papers, my memory continued its merciless work. I remembered that episode from February 2021 that had marked a before and after in our relationship, although I didn't understand it completely then. I had suffered an arrhythmia during a meeting with clients. Nothing serious, according to the doctors, but I needed to have a control electrocardiogram, and the cardiologist had insisted that I be accompanied by someone in case there was any complication during the test. I called Diana from the hospital. "Daughter, can you come to Ramon y Cajal Hospital? I need you to accompany me for a test." "What happened? Is it serious?" she asked me with concern that I interpreted as genuine. "I don't think so, but the doctor says it's better if someone comes with me." There was a pause, a long pause that should have alerted me. "Dad, I'm in the middle of a very complicated mediation. Can't Mum go with you?" "Your mother is working, and besides, you know how she gets with medical issues," I explained. Isabel had always gotten very upset about any family health problem. "Look, Dad, call a taxi or ask a friend. I really can't leave right now. This case has taken me months to get." She hung up after promising she would call me as soon as she finished. She never called. I ended up asking Sebastian, my retired neighbor, to accompany me. A 78-year-old man had to act as a son because mine was busy with more important things. But what really hurt me was discovering 3 days later a photo on Patricia's Instagram. Diana appeared smiling in an elegant restaurant toasting with a champagne glass. The caption said, "Celebrating the success of my favorite lawyer." The publication date coincided exactly with the day of my electrocardiogram. She hadn't had an important mediation. She had had a celebration dinner with her girlfriend. She had lied blatantly to avoid accompanying her father to a medical test. I continued reading the documents while more painful memories emerged like demons from the past. The day I needed help configuring my new smartphone, and Diana responded, "Dad, YouTube is full of tutorials. Learn like everyone else." The day I wanted to invite her to lunch for her birthday, and she told me she already had plans with Patricia's family. The day I tried to explain a problem with the Treasury, and she cut me off. "Hire a tax advisor. I don't work on that." But the most brutal contrast I discovered by chance on a Sunday in March 2023. I had gone to El Corte Inglés de Goya to buy a shirt and saw Diana carrying shopping bags with Joaquin. They were laughing animatedly while going up the escalators. Joaquin carried a bag from El Corte Inglés that seemed heavy. Diana, another from Sarah home. I followed them discreetly, feeling ridiculous but unable to resist. Curiosity. I saw them enter the electronics section together. Joaquin pointed to a 55-inch television while Diana nodded enthusiastically. I heard fragments of their conversation. "It will be perfect for the new living room," Joaquin was saying. "I don't know how to thank you enough," Diana responded. Joaquin was buying her a television that cost more than 1,000 euros. My daughter treated him with the deference and gratitude I had never received, not even when I gave her her first car for university. That day I understood I had lost my daughter long before realizing it. Joaquin had occupied my place not only as a paternal figure, but as a provider, as a reference, as the man Diana turned to when she needed something. I had become the biological father, the one who appeared in family photos by protocol, the one who received birthday calls lasting 2 minutes and courtesy Christmas visits. I returned to the present, to my silent office, to the documents I had before me. It was 2:47. In the morning, according to the wall clock, Diana and Patricia were probably dancing the last songs of the night, saying goodbye to guests, receiving final congratulations. Joaquin would have received all the praise. "What a perfect party. You organized everything impeccably. You're a wonderful father-in-law." And I would have been left as the stingy one who didn't give a single balloon. Perfect. It was time for that perception to become permanent reality. I put the documents in the manila envelope where I had them organized and placed it in the exact center of the desk. Tomorrow I would begin the most important phase of my plan, showing Diana that she had been absolutely right. Her father really didn't give anything and never would again. I woke up on Sunday, September 17th at 6:30 in the morning with a mental clarity I hadn't experienced in years. There was no trace of the emotional heaviness I expected to feel after such a devastating night. It was as if my brain had processed all the information during sleep and had reached definitive conclusions. I prepared a strong coffee and sat on the terrace of my apartment, contemplating Madrid under the golden dawn light. The city was slowly awakening. Some early risers were exercising in the nearby park. The kiosks were beginning to open. Traffic was still sparse. Everything normal, everything predictable. Just like my relationship with Diana had been for years, predictably painful. I took out my agenda and began to make a meticulous list. It wasn't a revenge plan, as some might think. It was a plan of coherence. If Diana considered that her father didn't give a single balloon, then her father would be exactly that, someone who never gives anything to anyone, especially to her. The first name I wrote down was Roberto Navarro Perez, my trusted lawyer for 15 years. Roberto had helped me with the divorce. He had drafted all the important contracts for the company. He knew every detail of my patrimony. If anyone could execute my plan impeccably, it was him. The second name was Carlos Mendoza Ruiz, my contact at Soavis Real Estate. Carlos had sold luxury properties for several of my wealthy clients. He had experience with complex transactions and, more importantly, absolute discretion. The Velázquez apartment would need a buyer who paid cash and closed the operation quickly. The third name cost me more work to write. Fernando Castañeda López, president of Mediterráneo Investments S.L., a Catalan business group that had been insisting on buying Ruiz Construction for 2 years. Fernando had made me generous offers every 6 months, always politely rejected because I had other plans for the company plans that included a natural heir named Diana. Those plans had died the night before at 22:34, the exact time my daughter pronounced those devastating words. I reviewed my phone contacts until I found Fernando's number. It was too early to call, but I knew he was an early riser. At 8:15 I dialed his number. "Manuel, what a pleasant surprise," he answered with that energy characteristic of Catalan businessmen. "How are you? How was your daughter's anniversary?" "Perfect, Fernando, absolutely perfect," I responded with irony he couldn't capture. "I'm calling because I've been reflecting on our previous conversations." There was an expectant silence on the other side of the line. Fernando was too experienced to show premature emotion, but he sensed something important was about to come. "In what sense, Manuel? Your last offer for Ruiz Construction, is it still valid?" "Of course. In fact, we could improve it depending on various factors. Are you seriously considering selling?" "Very seriously. When could we meet to discuss details?" Fernando couldn't hide his enthusiasm. "How about tomorrow, Monday? I can fly to Madrid without problem. Perfect. In my office at 10:00. I'll be there, Manuel. I'm very glad you've made this decision. It will be a great acquisition for us. I hung up, feeling a strange mixture of liberation and melancholy. I had just taken the first step to dismantle everything I had built thinking of Diana. It was painful, but also purifying, like cleaning an infected wound. The second call was to Roberto Navarro. His secretary informed me he was spending the weekend at his country house, but she could locate him for emergencies. I told her it was urgent. "Manuel, is everything okay? It's not usual for you to call on Sundays," Roberto told me when he finally answered. "I need to see you early tomorrow. I have to prepare several important documents related to some legal problem." "Quite the opposite. I'm going to sell the company and the Velázquez apartment. I need you to prepare all the documentation." Roberto kept silent for several seconds. He knew my plans regarding Diana. He knew how important it was for me to leave her a solid patrimony. "Manuel, are you sure? It's a very important decision. Maybe you should think about it a few more days." "I've been thinking about it my whole life, Roberto. There's no going back." "Very well, we'll see each other tomorrow at 9. I'll prepare everything necessary." The third call was the most delicate. Carlos Mendoza answered on the second ring, as always. "Don Manuel, how long without hearing from you?" "Carlos, I need you to put the Velázquez apartment up for sale immediately. The 180 square meter one you renovated 3 years ago." "Exactly that one. But if that apartment was for your daughter, not anymore." Carlos had enough experience not to ask uncomfortable questions. "I understand. What price do you have in mind?" "Market price, but I want a serious buyer who closes quickly, preferably a foreign investor who pays cash." "No problem. I have several clients who could be interested. When can I take photos and prepare the dossier?" "Tomorrow afternoon, if possible." "Perfect. I'll send a technician at 16:00. When I finished the calls, it was 9:30 in the morning. Diana and Patricia were probably still sleeping after their anniversary night, oblivious to the earthquake that was gestating in the life they thought they had planned. I dressed in sportswear and went out to walk through the Retiro. I needed to move, think, process what I was doing. For 2 hours I walked the park paths, observing families enjoying Sunday, young couples walking hand in hand, parents pushing baby carriages. All those family scenes I had imagined living with Diana when she became a grandmother. Plans I now knew were completely unrealistic. How was I going to be a grandmother to someone who considered I didn't give a single balloon? What role would I have in the lives of those future grandchildren? That of the poor grandmother who appears with cheap gifts while grandfather Joaquin showers them with expensive whims? No, I had already seen that movie and I didn't like the ending. Around noon, while I was having coffee on the terrace of Retiro Cafe, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Don Manuel Ruiz? Yes, that's me. I'm a journalist from the society section of ABC newspaper. We were yesterday at your daughter's anniversary. We want to do a report about the celebration. Could we ask you some questions?" My blood froze. A journalist had been at the anniversary, had heard Diana's speech, possibly had noticed my early departure. "What kind of report?" "A social chronicle about elegant Madrid anniversaries. It was a very beautiful celebration." "I have nothing to declare," I responded dryly. "We just wanted to know your opinion about the party, some emotional anecdote." "I repeat that I have no statements. Good day." I hung up feeling a new wave of humiliation. A journalist had witnessed my public degradation. There would possibly be other guests who would comment on the anecdote in their social circles. "Did you hear about what happened at the Ruiz anniversary? The celebrant humiliated her father in front of everyone." My name would become gossip fodder, an example of filial ingratitude, a reason for social pity. No, that wasn't going to happen. I returned home and locked myself in my office. It was time to accelerate all processes. I called Fernando Castañeda again. "Fernando, about our meeting tomorrow, could you bring a formal written offer? I'd like to close the operation as soon as possible." "Of course, Manuel. Is there any particular urgency?" "Let's say my life priorities have changed." "I understand perfectly. At our age, time is gold." He had no idea how right he was. That night, while Diana and Patricia enjoyed their first night as a married couple, I finished planning the systematic destruction of all their economic dreams. It was poetic justice. She had destroyed my paternal dreams in public. I would destroy her material expectations in private. The difference was that I had the real power to do it. Monday, September 18th, dawned grey and rainy, as if the sky itself reflected the transformation I was about to execute. At 7:30, I was already showered, shaved, and dressed in my best navy blue suit. I had appointments that would change my life forever, and I wanted to make the best possible impression in what would be the last acts of my business career. Roberto Navarro arrived punctually at 9 at my office on Serrano Street, loaded with his brown leather briefcase and a poorly disguised expression of concern. For 15 years he had been my legal advisor, but also something like a friend. He knew my obsession with leaving an empire to Diana. "Manuel, before starting with the papers, can I ask what happened? Yesterday you sounded different." I served myself a coffee from the machine I had in the office and offered him another. "Roberto, do you have children?" "Two. Ana is 25 and Marcos is 22.